Hello, everyone. How are you today? Thanks, Andrew, for getting me out here. I'm super excited to talk to everyone today. I'm gonna give it one more second here while I crack a cold beer. Also, Andrew, thank you for finally putting me in the afternoon, so I didn't feel like a crazy person wanting to have a beer at 10 a.m. my time, 11 your time. So I'll let everybody kind of get joining, and then we'll talk about aging with grace, or innovating while you grow older. So just if anybody's wondering, this is not just for a brewery who is 15 20 years old. This can also apply to a brewery who is 5 years old, 8 years old, right? Somebody who's maybe been around for 4 years, and your initial excitement has kind of worn off, and now you're trying to see, okay, how do we keep up? How do we keep this thing moving? So aging with grace can really cover anybody past that first, 2 to 3 years or so, I'd say. But and I think it's important that that a lot of these the tips, or recommendations, or even the small things that I might say today, they can resonate with all of you, no matter what brewery size you are, no matter how old you are. It's a lot about my typical thing, marketing structure, and so on. So that being said, I've got my beer open, a little Idle Hounds Coaster Kolsch, some buddies of ours down in Florida. Um, and we'll get this thing started. If you have any questions, feel free to ping them in the chat. If not, all good. I'm going to keep it rolling for y'all. So, aging with grace, right? So we're going to start on a simple level of your marketing structure. And again, this is something that I think I've talked about quite a bit with many of the conversations that I've had on the Craft Beer Professionals channel. So I like to start with it because it's still pretty important. And so I'm going to give an example of a 5-year-old brewery, or maybe 5 to 8-year-old brewery. And now you're at that point where, okay, we've been coming up with cool things. We are making some exciting beers, or maybe you've been making some exciting beers, but you really haven't ventured off too much because you're really mastering that. The big question that should come up, and again, bear with me, I'm going to keep asking those things for you, and you can write them down if you can, or you can reach out and I'll give you a checklist, so to speak. But the first big question is what's your marketing structure currently look like, right? How's it laid out? How are you marketing? How are you building your advertising campaigns? How are you innovating, not just in the beer side, which is great. If you're doing that, you're already one step ahead, right? Because that's a necessity these days. It's almost, you have to. But what are you doing to ensure that your marketing is following suit too, right? And also to ensure that this messaging that you might have created is being dispersed properly, and it's being talked about, and it's out there, right? So your marketing structure, and I say that you can look back at some of the other talks. You, again, feel free to message me. I'm happy to dive in a little bit deeper there. I know Andrew probably doesn't want me to go too deep in the marketing structure today, but a couple quick notes there that I think you can take home with you is looking to something like a tasking software like an Asana. That's number one. I think it's going to make your life a lot easier. Planning out your social media, planning out your ad campaigns. And again, this will tie back to your overall messaging, your overall strategy. So I'll dive into that messaging part, right? So it's 5 years later. The big question that I would say ask yourself, or even 3 years later, have you mastered your messaging yet? Right? Have you mastered the voice and the messaging of your breweries? And I know you might say, well, of course I have. I'm 3 years into this. I hope I have, but you'd be surprised. We've had breweries that are, 8 to 20 years old, or older, who haven't, or who have are in a crisis right now of who they are, right? Whether they're rebranding, or whether they're struggling to know if they should rebrand, or if they should stick to their guns and do what they do best. So what I would ask yourself right away is, if when you're starting to have this conversation, is, are you focusing on your messaging, right? Have you mastered your messaging? Have you made it to where, the message in the social media posts, the ads, the posters, the POS, the PR conversations that are out there, are all consistent, that are not just on an ad campaign or a campaign level, but consistent into what you want your message to be as a company, right? So that's a big question. And then that kind of leads me into planning out your 2 and 5 year overarching strategy as a company. So a lot of times strategy can be used in just the marketing world, right? And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, what's the strategy for marketing this or strategy for growing the brand? And that's part of it for sure. But this overarching is, what is the 2 year plan for your brewery, right? Are you going to focus on your core values? Are you going to focus on innovation and collaboration? Are you going to focus on specific product innovation? Or, are you going to focus on the tap room and let people know all the cool things that are going on at the tap room on the experiential side, right? So once you have these, let's say 3 or 4, maybe 5 big items that you want to focus on in that strategy, you can then turn around and start developing your campaigns, start developing your marketing overviews for each year, right? So again, this can be applied to even a young brewery, really. You've gotten past the initial hype of being open and opened up, and it's starting to die down. Okay, well, our messaging is there because we just created it 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So what is the strategy? What's the growth goal? What's the goal for the company? So take those, write that down, put it on a piece of paper, put it up on your office wall, put it up in all of the meeting documents that you're going to have about marketing. And then from there, we dive back into building out your strategy. So, for example, if I've got the marketing or the overarching company strategy for a business for the next 3 years, I know, okay, this is what my marketing campaigns and my marketing development and the social media and POS. These are the items that I have to make sure we're representing properly, right? So let's say it's focusing on cores is one of them. We want to make sure that we really emphasize our core products. Maybe we're a 15, 20-year-old brewery who's been making these core products, winning awards with them every year or for years, and they are great products, but we really want to make sure that we remind people, hey, we're still here, we're still making badass stuff 15 years later, right? So in that sense, you start building out your campaigns, right? You can go and say 2023 marketing overview, and you can say, I'm going to build out 2 big campaigns for the year, build out the strategy behind it. And now you know that whatever campaign you do for spring through summer or fall through the end of the year, through the beginning of the year in the winter, it's still focusing on that core reminder, that core product push. So you're letting people know, hey, we still exist here. Maybe one of those overarching strategies is a new product that you're taking mainstream, and you're going to say, hey, for the next 3 years, we're going to give this product the most love that we possibly can, and it's going to be awesome. It's maybe a new hazy double IPA. I don't know, right? Just throwing something out there. But it's a big focus for you. You're investing a lot of money into it. Maybe you're investing in printed cans, 12-pack packaging, new draft handles, whatever, right? You can take that, put it into your overarching campaigns for the 2023 campaign, right? Now you're starting to build a full marketing plan for the next year. So once you have that overarching company strategy of what we're focusing on, the big items, then you can build a few big bets for the year under that, right? Say, okay, for 2023, here's our main focuses. And then underneath that, you start building your campaigns. So I'm sure I might lose you a little bit. So I'm going to take some breaks here and there, take a sip of my beer, kind of let you catch up. And if you have questions, go ahead and pop them in. If not, all good. Give me 1 second. Cool. So to kind of keep this going, right? We're at the point now where we're building out some strategy for the company. You finally figured that out. You've collected your big bets and your big wins into another category that's going to help you guide that year out. And you figured out that those are what you want to focus on for that year. And now you start to build out your campaign. So that side, you're good. That's where that marketing structure side comes in. Now, the next question that I like to really ask folks when they're talking to us and they say, hey, we're an 8-year-old brewery, we're a 6-year-old brewery, people are popping up left and right like they are these days. How are we going to stay relevant? How are we going to, stay on top? Well, obviously, number one, the easy answer, and it's not, at least in some people's minds, it's the easy answer, I would say, is oh, we got to be innovative and we got to make innovative products. We got to do that, which is absolutely a thing for sure. But let me tell you, that's not the only thing, right? So when you're looking at, okay, we're this old, okay, now we got to be innovative and we got to really push that. Well, what else is there, right? Build some more meat to that. And again, this is where when you start thinking about 5 years as a company, where do you want to be in 5 years, in 2 years, right? Because then from there, we can take and kind of dissect it a little bit and go, well, in 2 years, we want to have this many barrels a year that we're producing. We want to have, we want to do this many collabs in in this year. Or we want to have these types of events at the brewery, or we want to really have a hype around us for loggers or whatever it might be, right? Um, and then you're able to have more than one thing, right? It's not just about being innovative, because everyone is doing the same thing. Everyone is trying to be innovative. Everyone is trying to come up with the next cool thing and be the next cool hip brewery, right? So again, refocus yourself. Come back to what you believe in. So when you're sitting there and you're saying, okay, I've kind of got an idea of what I want as an overarching strategy. Um, then again, bump yourself back a little bit and say, okay, what are our focuses, right? We're going to focus on quality. If that is that your thing? Is quality your thing? Are you going to focus on creating the coolest hazy IPAs in the country? Is that what you're thinking? And then really, as you're aging, as things go, right? I think the best tip I can give here is paying attention to everything around you, right? And I know it's tough. There's some breweries in some parts of the country that are a little behind from other parts of the country in terms of where the beer scenes are, right? But a really fun tip that I would say there is having some connections outside of those territories so that you can always have your pulse on what's going on out there. And I know a lot of you try to do that, a lot of you do on the beer side, but are you in the marketing side, right? What's the next big thing that is rolling out in the digital marketing world? What's the algorithm changing to these days? There are a lot of articles out there. There are a lot of people like myself who happily talk to you about it as well. There are folks, like Not Your Hobby, who are going to do sessions and give you teaching lessons and be able to, give you the tools that you need to go do it yourself. And then there's also, again, a lot of articles out there, a lot of free stuff you can use. But my advice there would be to stay on top of that. Treat it like it's the beer side, right? Now, I know you're saying, like, hey, we're 5 years old or we're 8 years old. Maybe you haven't built out the team for that yet. Well, I'm going to tell you now that it's probably time. If you've made it to that point, it's time to start thinking about how you can build this team out to continue the growth of your company. Because, and I know this is hard. A lot of your companies, it might not be built right away to grow and maintain that growth as you do grow as a company. Whether it's your distribution growing, or maybe you're adding more locations, but I think what a lot of people forget is it kind of gets pushed to the back, and it's not on purpose. A lot of times it's an accident, and then it's like, oh crap, we really have to start thinking about marketing and start thinking about our sales strategy, our marketing strategy, our digital marketing. What are we doing there? How are we, showing the world that we're different? You've taken the time now to develop somewhat of a plan, and you're developing your marketing campaigns. Well, from there, how are you getting it implemented? How are you getting it implemented, right? How are you, what tools are you utilizing? What people are you utilizing? Are you having professional photography done, right? Are you using a social media manager? Do you have an agency that you're thinking about using, right? I'd say that, obviously I'm speaking about this because I own an agency, right? But aside from me doing that, I say it as a genuine thing, is to look into what you can do to keep growing. That's not you doing it. And I mean that in the nicest way. Unless you're solely the marketing person on a company and that's all you're doing. And I'm sure you're laughing if you're in a small company right now, because I know pretty much all of you are not just doing marketing. But if you are, great, you guys were built for this, go ahead and do it. My tips would still be that you need to add more to your team as you grow, as you get older. But if you're not, like most of you who are maybe 3, 4 people, brewing, production, side of the world, sales, maybe some marketing and tap or operations, right? Now you're talking about really spreading that pretty thin and making it where um, you're trying to do too much. You're missing your social media calendars. You're missing your ad updates. You're not getting fresh ads out there. You're not communicating with distributors that you need to do ads, or you're not getting co-ops with your distributors, right? There's so much that you can be doing as a company. So in that note, um, what I'll say here is that you're not alone, right? There are breweries again that we've worked with and talked to who are 20 years old, 30 years old, maybe even, who aren't quite there yet, or who are missing that structure, missing that you know plan in place. So don't panic, don't freak out. You're okay, but take the time, mark it on your calendar, take the time to do the marketing research to really understand it. And don't be afraid to reach out to people too, right? And see what kind of help you can get. So to kind of bump back to these older companies who come to us, and so I'm going to speak to maybe some of the older breweries here. I'd say 8 years or older. I guess it's kind of everybody too. But to go to that, I want to go back to this marketing structure a little bit, and I want to start where you can really think about your plan. What is your overarching plans that you're building out, and then how are you implementing them? So when we talk about that, and I think I did a speech a while ago called "Are You Half-Assing Your Marketing?" So this is going to have some similar notes to that one, with a little less detail because I'm trying to stay broader here on that structural part. But I put that "Are you half-assing your marketing" thing together with the mindset of seeing a lot of breweries coming to us and talking to us, and friends that we know who are older breweries too, who are doing a campaign that's digital. And they're like, man, we're not really seeing a lot of traction on the sales front from this. What's going on? Well, what programs have you built for the sales team? What POS and merch do you have for your distributor? Right. So start building those checklists. When you build it, come up with this campaign for the year. You're going to run it for March through October. Don't just think about what you're doing digitally on your own dime and on your own side. Think about what you're doing digitally with your distributors. Can you get some of your distribution companies to co-op some ads with you? Can you get them to give you quarterly budget to help co-op some ads? Can you give them, quarterly budget to help co-op some merch, co-op some POS? Think about those things. Write it down. Put a note by it, right? And when you're in your marketing meeting, you're in your strategy meeting, really, put that together. Write those notes. Ask your distributor. A lot of times, if you talk to them about it, you might actually see some good results from it, and then you're going to see some buy-in. So build that out. Build your campaign out with the idea of sales, tap room, and marketing all having big pieces to do with this. So that would be my tip there on just kind of your general structuring again. And I don't want to go too deep down a rabbit hole on that, because I can and I would, but I think if you are looking at that, you're building out your strategy and you're coming together and you're finally putting it on paper. Don't forget those assets. Don't forget what you're really going to need in order for your campaign to be full. You're talking ad spend from your side, ad spend from the distribution side. You're talking POS, merch. You're talking taproom events, everything that can be involved in that campaign that really reiterates that. Sorry, gotta have a sip of that. A lot of talking. So I've talked about that, really reiterating what you've come up with, right? So I'm going to dive in a bit, and again, not too deep, but to mention the messaging side, of your company. So I'm going to give a quick example here, right? If you've got a brewery and you've got your slogan and it's laid out in front of everybody, a lot of times when we come in, we do a survey, and I've had plenty of the surveys come back from some of the people within the company, brewer or bartender or whatever, that say, "Well, this is our slogan, but what are we doing that tells people that?" And it's a common issue, right? You can go to a lot of breweries' websites these days, or you can go on a social media and you can see a hashtag that they're using almost every post, whatever it might be. But none of their messaging or none of their imagery, none of their content, none of their marketing campaigns are really reflecting that, right? If you're fearless or you're whatever, then you need to put that messaging out there. So what I would say is that we're building out this campaign now. Think about your campaigns as a way of reinforcing that messaging. You don't have to reiterate your slogan because people are probably tired of hearing it, especially if you've been around for 8, 10 years, 20 years, right? You probably had a slogan that's been around for a bit. Don't use that campaign as another way to reiterate your slogan, but build a message within that campaign that reinforces who you are as a company, what you are as a company, and what you guys make as a company, what you do as a company. Um, and so the question I would ask yourself as you're sitting down, you're writing out your marketing plan, you're putting it on Google Sheets, Excel, whatever. You've come up with your focuses on your overarching company strategy. Your focus on quality, core to you products. Your core values, maybe right. Maybe it's part of your slogan. We really want to reinforce this year or this next 3 years that we are this. We are this exciting brand that we say we are with our, 4 word slogan, whatever. Um, Ask yourself, you know, how is this campaign reinforcing? Kind of leave that note on almost every tab. When we're building out one of these overview plans, we've got, a section for each campaign, a little tab. And within that tab, you should say, well, are we reinforcing our core values? Are we reinforcing our messaging? And ask that every time. Ask that in all the meetings. And, when you're preparing something, when you're doing a campaign, when you're maybe even thinking about a new product launch, right? How are we using this product to reinforce who we are as a company? If you're that outdoorsy company and you love the great outdoors and you want people to relate your product to hiking and to camping and all that, what are you doing to do that? Right? Is this campaign, um, is it driven with some hammocks and some coolers, and you're really saying like, hey, go get out there and enjoy yourself, but don't forget your beer with you when you go out there and you do that, right? Don't forget your blank brand name, whatever your company's name's beer with you, because we want to be on every adventure with you, right? If you maybe your slogan's adventurous, maybe you're more dark and you're more a little bit to yourself. Represent that though, own it, right? So as you're getting older, these questions really start to come up more. So that's why I bring them up. When you're a younger brewery and you're fresh off and everybody's excited, they're interested in your product because you're pretty new, these questions don't come up as much. You created that core value or your mission statement or whatever when you were pitching the bank or pitching an investor and trying to get some money. But do you still have that out? Are you still following that? Be honest with yourself, because I'm willing to bet that you're not. Has your imagery changed, right? Or have you updated that? Are you sticking to what you originally designed? And then if you're not sticking to what you originally designed, are you updating that across the board? Or did you just update your logo and hopefully nobody noticed? Um, so again, these questions really start coming up as you become an older brewery. And again, I don't even mean 5 years. In 5 years or so, and you're a 1 year old brewery right now, in 3 to 5 years from now, you're going to be sitting there and you're going to be asking yourself, what are we? Who are we? And it happens more often these days because of so many breweries opening up every year, right? We're still in this influx of breweries opening and new places popping up, and the consumer being, very indifferent here and there about the beer product or if it's NA or what's growing now. So you can watch all these trends, but I think the biggest thing that we take away from working with breweries throughout the country that are of very, very different ages, kind of all over the board, is the messaging side, is the marketing structure side, are you reinforcing that messaging? If you haven't figured out your messaging, that's okay. I mean, it's not okay, but it's okay. Don't panic. Sit down, take the time, come up with your messaging. Because again, as you grow, you're going to start adding people to your team, hopefully. Because as an owner or as an owner marketer or as an owner brewer, I'm sure you don't want to be doing all your own marketing forever, So start doing this now as a younger brewery, as a 5 to 8 year old brewery, or as a 5 year old brewery, preferably, if you're going to come to me, and have it ready so that in year 6, when you say, okay, we've got the budget, we're going to hire a marketer, or we're going to hire an agency, or we're going to, bring in a new digital marketing manager internally, whatever it might be, you have this in front of you, right? And you're not questioning it. I think that's the biggest thing that we run into these days is we get into a company, and I can almost tell you that 90% of the folks that we've worked with have had that question come up, right? Um, it's always a mixed message of, are we like, what's our messaging? Or, this is our messaging, it was, but I think we want to change it. This was our logo, this was our design, but I think we want to change it, which is fine. Everybody changes, but are you changing it because you feel like you need to change it? Are you changing it because it's really bad and you do need to change it? Or have you not really followed any of that for the last 5 years that you made for your presentation to an investor? And now you're like, okay, well, the excitement is worn off. What can we do to make sure that we're exciting again and that we're really pushing product? Again, I'm gonna open it up real quick. If you have questions, and you're not on here, you're not watching this live, that's totally cool. You can reach out to me, Andrew. You've got all my info. If you reach out to Andrew, he'll tell you where I'm at. You can find me at info@beermarketeers.com, or just message us on Instagram. You'll find me there too. I'm happy to chat and answer questions. If you're watching this, recorded, or listening to it recorded, feel free to reach out. Um, I want to try to answer as many questions as I can. A lot of my speeches are a lot more interactive, right? I don't have presentations that I want to do because I want to be able to talk a little freely, and I don't want to be so boring, right? I want to have a little fun with it. So that's just my style. So again, if you have questions, just feel free to reach out. Um, but I'll keep this going here in a second for you. All right. So we're at the point now where you started to ask yourself these questions, right? It's coming up more often. You're starting to see if you can fit some marketers into the budget, and now you've realized that, okay, I can, but I'm not ready yet. So some tips, some tools here I'll give you guys to use. Start building everything out that you possibly can on paper. And again, we use Asana a lot of times because it's a free software. You can build out tasks that way. You can build out full campaigns that way. You can build out a social calendar and so on. I'll kind of talk about that in a second. But we use Asana for a lot, combined with Google Sheets, right? And essentially, we'll sit down and we'll say, okay, you're a company who's at this stage in your life. How do we build this out? What's this going to look like? And we start putting it in. So Asana, Google Sheets, start adding your notes into there. Start having these meetings. Schedule that weekly meeting to get this going. And then that way, you don't want to go into this hire or into this bringing in of an agency or whatever it might be without this. I promise you. So many people come to us, and then we can't really be successful, or that new hire can't be successful. And I'm sure if you were live right now and you are experiencing this, you could probably raise your hand and say that you've had that experience, that you brought in a marketer, or you brought in an agency, or you brought in a designer, or a consultant, whatever it might be, and you didn't have the success. And if you look back on it now, was it because of you not having your messaging cleaned up? Was it because of you not having your overarching company goals or strategy laid out, right? So, you know, have that ready. Start writing it down, put it on paper, and then be able to turn around and build out your overarching campaigns for the next year, for the year after that, and follow that for a few years, right? Stay to it. As you're doing your 2023 build out of overview of marketing, right? And you say, okay, we're going to do this campaign here, and each campaign's got its section for socials and ad spends and so on. Then as 2023 goes on, you really started to complete your campaigns, and you're kind of halfway through. You can really start assessing what's working, what's not working. Keep doing that towards the end of the year, and use that to build your 2024 campaigns. And I know this is weird. I guess we're talking about this as a general marketing and a general, you know, it doesn't really matter what your age is, but this comes up a lot. I feel like a lot more, especially as you start to get that age under you. You start to get a few years under your belt. Now you're thinking that we really have to focus on marketing, and a lot of times that's when it happens. That's when we get the phone call. So I'm trying to prepare you a little bit before then. We've got a lot of documents, a lot of sheets, a lot of I guess you can call them tasks or checklists that I'd be happy to share or happy to talk to you about. You can help you build your own. If you want to talk about Asana, that's fine too. I think if anybody from Asana is ever listening, you guys should pay me to be a spokesperson because I think we use you guys a lot. I talk about you more than anything else. But so, all right. So now we're building. We're back to building some strategy here. So give me one second. All right. So now we've gotten that person hired, right? And again, I'm going to try to tie it back a little bit more to the aging with grace thing because I want to make sure that as you're getting older, you continue to ask yourself, a lot of these questions, right? And again, it's really about what are you focusing on as a company. We see it a lot of times. They forget, right? They lose their core values. They're not getting out there and doing collaborations. They're not getting out there and really showing their product innovation. So again, you're thinking about your strategy for let's say 2023. You've come up with your overarching company strategy and now and you've come up with a handful of your big bets, so to speak, for 2023. Maybe it's core products, this one new product you're launching, and product innovation, right? And that's part of maybe that third one is one of your bigger overarching company strategies because you're talking about production team getting innovative and so on there too. But um, let's say that third one again is product innovation. Well, we've got a few folks that we've worked with and are working with in the past as well, but who that's always been one of their goals, but they don't really show it, right? So again, keeping those overarching strategy items around are going to help you remind yourself to say, hey, we need to show it. So how are you showing product innovation? Are you showing your product innovation through a couple random pictures on social? Or are you building out a full campaign that really focuses on your product innovation? Are you partnering with other local breweries, maybe some younger ones who are more in the cool kid or hype crowd that you can say these days, and you're doing some collaborations to show that hey, we're also doing some fun stuff. Are you coming out with new products that are, in the realm of these exciting new, trends that are out there? I'm not saying that you have to, right? I like it when you do as a marketer. It makes it a little easier, but you don't have to. Maybe that's not your thing. Maybe you're not coming out with these crazy stuff, but your product innovation can rely on the quality of your product, right? On instead of, hey, I'm going to create a vanilla sweet stout, my product innovation is we decided that aside from our cores, double IPA, a good lager, and this, we're going to focus on making the absolute best lager that we possibly can. Or we're going to focus on creating some really cool and crazy barrel aged sours, right? And, what is that? Or, we're going to say, hey, barrel aged lagers are a thing, right? One of our guys here in Nashville, Barik, really close friends of ours, they started as a sour brewery. And that's pretty much been the bread and butter for the company for a while. They were able to get a fantastic brewer in Spencer, who's a badass, and he can brew some really great beer. Well, to kind of really focus in when Joel started talking about branching off from making these barrel aged sours, it was well, I don't know, that's kind of weird. It's not our thing. So the conversation came up was well, what can be our thing? What can fall under Barrique? And barrel aged lagers were the thing for them, right? And so now when they're talking about their messaging, they're coming up with new products, they're innovating. Maybe they're coming up with a new product in their lineup, but maybe it's an older style product of an older lager, that or rock beer, right? That's not necessarily in the cool world, but now they get to put their stamp on it, saying, "Hey, this is a barrel aged lager. It is on on every can design that we did with them. Um, it's there." So they're really reiterating that, and I know that that's the goal for them in the next handful of years is to not just say, "Hey, yeah, we're known for our sours," and that's kind of what put them on the map originally. But now, don't forget, this is also Barry. And so when I say that to tell you to find your thing, find what is going to be your next innovative product or innovative idea. Maybe it's not this crazy IPA. Maybe it is just a variation of things that already exist, but you're going to own it. You're going to own the fact that you're making barrel aged lagers. Check us out. We're going to make the best ones that we possibly can and show people that. So you're building out that part, and now you got to build out your campaign. You'll build out all those details around that, and you'll really get the chance to flush that out when you start building these details out. Again, I don't want to go into detail on this conversation, but I'm happy to do so if you want to chat, to give you some more ideas and do a little brainstorming. But find your few things, find your big strategy things, break them down from there. Start breaking them down by the year, start breaking them down by the product, and really give yourself a chance to succeed with that. Because if you don't do this, I can promise you that there's gonna be 100% chance that you don't succeed in that realm, right? If you don't start planning ahead, if you don't start building this out, it's gonna get tougher. It's gonna really make it where in that 8-year timeline, you're like, what have we accomplished, right? In that 10-year timeline, you're gonna turn around, you're gonna go, we still don't have a marketing calendar. We still don't have an email marketing calendar. We still have a social calendar. And all of a sudden we're hiring people, and now, oh crap, well they don't know what to do, and they're not being successful. So now you're really setting yourself up for some failure if you don't start planning ahead. So that's where this aging with grace idea, I think, really resonates, is that you know you still have the chance to continue to build. If you're a 25-year-old brewery, you're not done yet, right? There's still ways that you can fix and turn around and tell your story. Lean into the fact that you have been around for 25 years. Lean into the fact that you are still making some top-notch beers. Because if you've been around for 25 to 30 years, you're probably making some of the best beers in the country in terms of quality. But is it exciting enough? Are you doing things at the brewery that are exciting enough? Are your marketing campaigns exciting? I mean, you don't have to listen to me. You can take notes from the big companies, right? You can take notes from someone like Sierra Nevada, who is, yeah, they're innovating some products too, but their number one beer is a pale ale, right? And what they're really innovating on is they're constantly reminding people who they are and how great their product is and the quality of their product, whether it's through a marketing campaign, whether it's through some press releases or a combination of all of that, right? They are constantly reminding people that they're making really quality product. Or whether it's through some kind of contest or event that they do at the brewery, that's fine too. That's where their innovation gets exciting as well. And I think someone like Sierra, you're talking big budgets, right? I understand that, but if you look at it, even at the brewery, if you go to somewhere like the brewery in North Carolina, um, they're that facility, the fact that it's self-sustaining, they're certified B Corp, I believe now. So a lot of what they do, I promise you, is aimed on something like this that we're talking about now, right? It's aimed or based from, I should say, their determination of what they're going to be as a company in the next 5 and 10 and 20 years, right? So you've got that for Sierra. You've also got that their brand is very outdoorsy, right? And you know that they're outdoorsy. So establish that. And every year they're finding a different way to establish it. And I even mean, when you're talking about these campaigns and campaigns that they do, maybe you don't see it every day because certain markets reflect it differently. Maybe some distributors didn't buy in for them, whatever. But you can go into some markets with Sierra where they're really kicking some ass, and you'll see these displays that are just like this epic outdoorsy display. And that's all it takes, is that one thing for them. So they can do, they're big, and so they're doing that all over the country. But even in your local market, even in your regional market, you can do the same. You can build these campaigns that remind people of who you are. If you're a 30-year-old legacy brewery, it's always going to be tough reminding people that you're innovative, but it's not that bad. You can do it. I promise you. You can take that. You can say, okay, this is our slogan. Talk to the team. All right, everybody, we're sticking to it, right? Yep, cool. Then build your campaign to reiterate that, and build your strategy for the next 2 or 3 years to reiterate that, to really enforce that you are an adventurous brewery, you are innovating, you are still making some high quality products, and you're also making some new high quality products. because you don't want to lose your folks who have been there for the years. So you say, hey, this product's been here for 20 years and it's been the same award-winning product, and we'll put it up against it any day. This is what it is. It hasn't changed. We haven't changed the recipe, or we're confident behind the recipe that you like it, and this is what it is. It's a badass beer. So stick to your guns. So again, I think to wrap this up a little bit, I'm sorry. Sometimes I might be rambling. Andrew, you can tell me if I rambled too much, and apologize to everybody for me later. But what I would say is to start this whole conversation off by building your overarching strategy as a company, right? So take this, if you leave it one thing, take this as your big note and say, all right, who are we as a company, and what's our strategy for the next 3 years, next 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, right? As a business, as a company, what is your strategy? What do you want to be doing? And how do you want to be represented, right? Is it that you're going to really reinforce your cores? Is it going to be that you're an innovative old brewery? Like, hey, don't forget about us. Yes, we're 20 years old, but we're still being innovative. Is it that you're going to really give a lot of love to your core values? There are a lot of those. It can be all of those things, but list them out, put them on paper, and get them in front of your marketing team. Get them into your marketing meetings, and then take those 5 big things, 6 big things. I don't care if you have 10 of them. That's fine. Take those things and say, this is who we're going to be for the next 5 years. Don't flip flop, and then start building out your subsequent, or your subcategories of strategy. Take your whole year for the next 2023, build it out, campaigns underneath that, individual product launches, whatever it might be, events at the brewery. You can use that. The smaller breweries that are 10 years old, but you're still regional or local, and you've got such an opportunity to really take advantage of where the marketing trends are going right now, into this really experiential marketing world that we're going to be living in more and more every year, I feel like. And use it, right? Build events that are so high quality. A really cool example of a brewery that I think, and I know these guys a little bit, but we do not work with them. But Good Word, I think they're doing a great job. I think Todd and his team over there, they're doing an amazing job at creating some events that aren't just about selling tickets to this cool event that's got a ton of breweries or whatever it might be. They're creating an event that's got a really high quality ticket, right? And it reinforces that Good Word is a high quality brand. So if you're local, think about that. Overall, I hope this was helpful. If it wasn't, I apologize. But this is my style. So like I always say, if you want to reach out, I'm not going to charge you to call me. If I don't answer you, you're more than welcome to leave me a message, shoot me a text. If you want my information, Andrew, you can give it to him. In general, info@beermarketeers.com is me. You can reach us on Beer Marketeers, Instagram, Facebook. You can also reach us through the website. If you want to make sure I'm not full of shit, feel free to check our website. You can kind of see some of our experience there. We don't list it all. We're not trying to be that cool, but feel free to reach out if you need anything. And I hope you guys have a great day. And again, thank you, Andrew, for having me on this conference once again. And I hope to do it again soon. And honestly, I really hope that I can get to this 2023 one and talk to y'all some more up in Milwaukee. If you have any questions, if there's anybody here to ask questions, I'll give it a minute, but no big deal if not. And thanks again, Andrew. And cheers. Yeah. See you guys.